By the 7 moons of Kepler, I never thought I would live to see the day when a human would make me question everything I believed about galactic hierarchy. My name is Vorthak, and I am what you might call a xenobiologist, though that term barely scratches the surface of what I do for the Galactic Assessment Council. For the past 2 centuries, I have been cataloging species, ranking their combat effectiveness, and determining their place in our carefully structured cosmic food chain. Humans, according to our extensive files, ranked somewhere between the docile Quillian moss farmers and the barely sentient gas clouds of Nebula 7. Sure, they had shown some promise during their brief scuffles with pirates, but nothing that would make any self-respecting predator species lose sleep. They were soft, squishy, and laughably dependent on their primitive technology. That was before I met Zara Quinn. The day started like any other aboard the research vessel Nexus Prime. I was reviewing reports about a recent archaeological find on the dead world of Arcturus 9 when the emergency klaxons began wailing. The sound cut through my morning stimulant like a plasma blade through butter, and I nearly spilled my drink all over my pristine data tablets. "All personnel to emergency stations," came the announcement from Commander Thex, our Krillian captain whose voice could crack stone. "We have detected an unauthorized presence in the restricted archaeological zone." Now, here is where things get interesting. The restricted zone contained what our most learned archaeologists called the Vault of Echoes, a massive underground complex that had been sealed for over 10,000 years. The technology inside was supposedly so advanced that even our most sophisticated scanners could not penetrate its defenses. Various expedition teams had tried to break in over the decades, but the vault had a nasty habit of disintegrating anyone who got too close with anything more threatening than a scholarly interest. The unauthorized presence turned out to be a single human salvage ship, barely worthy of the name. The vessel looked like someone had taken spare parts from a dozen different civilizations and welded them together with hope and determination. It was piloted by one Zara Quinn, a human female who had somehow managed to slip past our orbital defenses like they were made of tissue paper. "Bring her aboard," Commander Thex ordered, his mandibles clicking with irritation. "I want to know how a primitive human managed to bypass our security grid." When they escorted Zara into the main conference chamber, I have to admit, I was not immediately impressed. She stood maybe 5.5 feet tall, with auburn hair that looked like she had been styling it with her fingers, and a flight suit that had seen better decades. Her eyes, though, those caught my attention. They were the color of earth storms, and they held the intelligence that made my scales tingle with unease. "So," she said, dropping into a chair without being invited, "which one of you wants to explain why you have been sitting on top of the most significant archaeological find in this quadrant without actually doing anything about it?" The audacity! The sheer, unmitigated gall of this tiny human addressing a room full of beings who could crush her without breaking a sweat. Commander Thex reared up to his full 8-foot height, his war scars gleaming in the artificial light. "Human," he growled, "you are trespassing in restricted space. This area has been sealed by order of the Galactic Council for the safety of all species. The technologies within that vault are far beyond your primitive understanding." Zara tilted her head and smiled, and something about that expression made my tertiary stomach clench with worry. "Oh, is that what you think? Tell me, Commander, how many of your people have actually made it inside the vault?" "That is classified information," Thex snapped. "Right, so 0 then." Zara stood up and walked to the viewing screen showing the planet below. "You know what I love about you galactic types? You are all so concerned with protocol and procedure. that you forget the most basic principle of archaeology. Sometimes you just have to knock. Before anyone could stop her, Zara had somehow accessed the ship communication system and was broadcasting directly to the planet's surface. Vault of Echoes. This is Zara Quinn aboard the salvage vessel Lucky Strike. I request permission to enter and pay my respects to whoever built you. I come seeking knowledge, not conquest. The room fell silent except for the gentle hum of life support systems. For 30 seconds, nothing happened. Then the vault responded. The entire planet began to glow. Not just the archaeological site, mind you. The entire planet lit up like a star-going supernova, and every sensor on our ship started screaming warnings about energy signatures that should not have been possible. The dead world of Arcturus 9, barren for millennia, was suddenly pulsing with more power than some civilizations used in a year. "By the ancient codes," whispered Dr. Millennia, our head archaeologist, "the entire planet is the vault. We thought we were looking at a single structure, but the whole world is one massive construct." Then came the voice. It spoke in perfect galactic standard, but there was something underneath it, a harmonic resonance that made my bones ache and my thoughts scatter like startled prey animals. "Zara Quinn of Earth," the voice said, "your species remembers the old ways. You may enter. Bring only what companions you trust with your life, for the trials ahead will test more than courage." Zara turned back to face us, and her smile had transformed into something that made my predator instincts scream danger warnings. "Well, gentlemen, looks like I am going planet-side. The question is, who wants to come along and find out what your ancestors were really afraid of?" Commander Thex was practically vibrating with outrage. "Absolutely not! This human has somehow compromised our security, activated a planetary defense system we did not even know existed, and now expects us to simply follow her into what could be the most dangerous archaeological site in known space." "Pretty much, yeah," Zara agreed cheerfully. "Though I would not call them defense systems, more like selection protocols. The vault has been waiting for someone who approaches it correctly. Your people have been treating it like a fortress to be conquered instead of a library to be respected." "And you know this how?" I found myself asking, my scientific curiosity overriding my survival instincts. Zara fixed me with those storm-colored eyes. "Because my grandmother was an archaeologist who spent her life studying pre-contact ruins on Earth. She taught me that the best way to understand an ancient site is to ask it what it wants, not tell it what you need." The planet pulsed again, and this time the energy readings were off any scale our instruments could measure. Down on the surface, the vault was opening, revealing passages that stretched down into the planet core like the roots of some massive tree. "The invitation is extended to 6 individuals," the voice continued. "Choose carefully, for once you enter, you will not leave unchanged." Commander Thex looked like he wanted to order a full retreat, but I could see the curiosity burning in his compound eyes. Dr. Millennia was practically bouncing with excitement, her tentacles writhing in patterns I recognized as academic fervor. Our head of security, a massive Brutarian named Corax, was checking his weapons with the methodical precision of someone expecting trouble. "I will go," I announced, surprising myself. "This could be the discovery of several lifetimes." "As will I," added Dr. Millennia. "Someone needs to keep you scientists alive," Corax rumbled, his voice like grinding stone. That left 3 spots, and Commander Thex was clearly torn between duty and curiosity. Before he could decide, the ship's sensors detected 3 more vessels approaching fast. They were Predator-class ships, the kind used by the galaxy's most feared hunter species. "Well," Zara said, watching the approaching ships on the display, "looks like word has gotten out. Those will be Shadowfang hunters, unless I miss my guess. They must have detected the energy surge." She was right. The lead ship was broadcasting identification codes for a pack of Shadowfang hunters, being so feared that entire systems paid tribute rather than risk their attention. These were creatures that hunted sapient species for sport, with reflexes faster than thought and technology that made our weapons look like children toys. "This is Pack Leader Venatrix of the Crimson Fang," came the transmission. "We claim salvage rights to whatever has awakened on the dead world. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed." Zara laughed, actually laughed, at a direct threat from beings that could depopulate planets. "Pack Leader Venatrix, this is Zara Quinn. I am afraid you are going to have to wait your turn. The Vault has made its selections, and apparently you were not invited to this particular party." The response was immediate and terrifying. All three hunter ships opened fire simultaneously, unleashing enough destructive force to crack a moon. The beams struck our shields and did absolutely nothing. Our defensive screens had not even flickered. "Fascinating," Dr. Millennia whispered. "The planetary field is protecting us." Down on the surface, the vault pulsed once more, and this time the energy discharge reached out across space, like visible lightning. It struck all three hunter ships simultaneously, and they simply stopped. Dead in space, all systems dark, drifting like expensive debris. "Warning to all approaching vessels," the vault voice announced, now broadcasting on all frequencies. "This site is under ancient protection protocols. Only those chosen may approach. Others will be disabled but not destroyed, as a courtesy to their species." The silence that followed was deafening. Through the viewing ports, I could see the disabled hunter ships spinning slowly in space, their crews presumably wondering how their supposedly invincible vessels had been swatted aside like annoying insects. Zara clapped her hands together. "Well, that settles the transportation issue. Pack Leader Venatrix and her friends can provide escort duty while we explore. I am sure they will be thrilled to help once they get their ships working again." "You cannot be serious," Commander Thex sputtered. "Those are Shadowfang hunters. They will kill us all the moment they regain power." "Oh, I doubt that," Zara replied, already heading for the shuttle bay. "The Vault seems to have very specific ideas about proper behavior. Something tells me our hunter friends are about to learn some manners." As we prepared to depart for the planet's surface, I found myself wondering what exactly this human female had gotten us into. The archaeological implications were staggering, certainly, but there was something else happening here, something that made my species' ancient survival instincts scream warnings I could not quite interpret. The shuttle ride down to the planet was eerily quiet. Our small party consisted of myself, Doctor, Millennia, Corax, Commander Thex, who had finally decided he could not miss this, a communications specialist named Jix, and, of course, Zara Quinn. The human sat in the pilot seat like she owned the universe, humming something that sounded suspiciously like an Earth battle hymn. As we approached the vault entrance, I got my first clear look at the structure, and my breath caught in my throat. What we had thought was a simple archaeological site was revealed to be the tip of something unimaginably vast. The opening stretched down into the planet like a perfect spiral, with walls that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal but maintained perfect geometric precision. "By the void," Commander Thex whispered. "How deep does it go?" "All the way to the core," Zara answered matter-of-factly. "The whole planet is hollow. This is not just a vault, folks. It is a testing ground." "Testing for what?" I asked, though part of me did not want to know the answer. Zara Quinn turned to look at me with those storm eyes, and her smile was sharp enough to cut steel. "For worthiness. The question is not what secrets the vault contains, Vorthak. The question is whether we are ready for what those secrets will make us become." The shuttle touched down at the vault entrance with barely a whisper of displaced air. Through the viewing ports, I could see the opening clearly now, and what I saw made my scales stand on end. The walls were covered in script that seemed to move and change as I watched, shifting between languages I recognized and symbols that hurt my eyes to look at directly. But it was what happened next that truly made me understand we had entered something far beyond our comprehension. The moment Zara Quinn stepped out of the shuttle, the vault sang. Not spoke, not hummed, but sang. A harmony that seemed to come from the very stones beneath our feet. The sound was beautiful and terrifying, like the war songs of dying stars, and it made every instinct I possessed scream that I was in the presence of something that could unmake reality itself. And through it all, this small human female walked forward with complete confidence, as if she had been expecting this moment her entire life. "Welcome, inheritors," the vault sang in a voice like breaking worlds. "Let the trials begin." What followed next made every horror story I had ever heard about ancient technology seem like bedtime tales for younglings. The moment we crossed the threshold, the entrance sealed behind us with a sound like reality tearing itself apart. We were trapped, 6 beings from different worlds, following a human female into what could very well be our tomb. The walls around us shifted and flowed, rearranging themselves into new configurations that defied every law of physics I thought I understood. "Relax," Zara called back to us, her voice echoing strangely in the impossible space. "The vault is just getting our measurements." "Our measurements for what?" Dr. Millennia asked, her tentacles writhing with nervous energy. "For what comes next," Zara replied, and I did not like the sound of that at all. The corridor we walked through began to branch into 6 separate paths, each one glowing with a different color of light. I found myself drawn toward the blue passage, while Dr. Millennia drifted toward the green, and Korax stomped determinedly toward the red. It seemed the vault was separating us based on some criteria only it understood. "Wait," Commander Thex called out. "We should stay together." "Should we?" Zara asked, pausing at the entrance to the white passage that beckoned to her. "Or should we trust that something smart enough to build this place knows what it is doing?" Before any of us could answer, the floor beneath our feet began moving like a conveyor belt, gently but inexorably pulling us toward our designated paths. Fighting it would have been like trying to swim against a black hole. "See you on the other side," Zara called cheerfully, disappearing into the white light. My passage led me through a series of chambers that seemed designed to test everything I thought I knew about xenobiology. I encountered holographic recreations of species that should not have existed, creatures that combined traits from dozens of different evolutionary paths in ways that made my academic mind reel. Each time I managed to classify one, it would shift into something new, forcing me to constantly reevaluate my assumptions. By the time I reached the end of my path, I felt like my entire understanding of life in the universe had been turned inside out and shaken vigorously. The chamber I emerged into was vast beyond description, with a domed ceiling that showed what looked like star maps of galaxies I did not recognize. I was not alone. Dr. Millennia arrived moments after I did, looking distinctly ruffled. Her usually pristine research robes were torn, and several of her tentacles were wrapped around what appeared to be fragments of some kind of energy construct. "The mathematics," she whispered, staring at the fragments. "The equations I found in there, they describe reality in ways that make our most advanced theories look like primitive scratching in the dirt." Korax emerged from his passage carrying a weapon I did not recognize, but which made the air around it shimmer with barely contained power. His usual confident demeanor was replaced by something approaching awe. "The combat simulations," he rumbled. "I fought beings that moved like liquid lightning and struck like falling moons. Every battle taught me something new about warfare, until I began to understand that fighting is not about destroying your enemy. It is about understanding them so completely that conflict becomes unnecessary." Commander Thex and Jix arrived together, both looking like they had been through experiences that had fundamentally changed their understanding of leadership and communication respectively. But it was when Zara emerged from her passage that the real shock began. She looked exactly the same, but she was not alone. Floating beside her was a suit of armor that seemed to be made from solidified starlight. It moved independently, as if worn by an invisible person, and when it spoke, its voice carried harmonics that made the vault itself seem to hum in recognition. "Greetings, seekers of knowledge," the armor said. "I am the Aegis of Echoes, guardian of the ancient compact between the builders and those who would inherit their legacy." "By all the void spawn," Commander Thex breathed. "It is sentient." "More than sentient," Zara corrected, and her voice now carried undertones that made my bones ache. "It is alive, and it has been waiting 10,000 years for someone to pass the trials and prove worthy of bearing it." The armor turned its attention to our group, and though it had no visible eyes, I could feel its gaze weighing each of us. The builders foresaw a time when the galaxy would face threats that conventional warfare could not address. They created me to be a bridge between organic intelligence and technological transcendence, but I could not function alone. I required a partner, someone whose spirit could harmonize with my purpose. "And you chose a human," I said, the implications staggering me. "I chose Zara Quinn," the armor corrected. "Species matters less than individual character." She approached this place with respect, rather than greed, curiosity rather than fear, and most importantly, she understood that some knowledge comes with responsibility. As if to demonstrate, Zara stepped forward, and the armor flowed around her like liquid metal. The transformation was instantaneous and breathtaking. One moment, she was an ordinary human salvager. The next, she was something that made my predator instincts scream warnings about apex predators. The armor enhanced everything about her. Her movements became fluid as water, but precise as clockwork. When she turned to look at us, her eyes now glowed with the same inner light as the vault walls. She had become something new, something that existed at the intersection of biology and technology. "The compact is renewed," the vault voice announced, and I could hear satisfaction in those cosmic tones. "The trials are complete. Guardian and Aegis are bonded. The Watchers may wake." "The Watchers?" Dr. Millennia asked. That was when the chamber began to fill with light, and shapes began materializing around us. They were tall, graceful beings with features that seemed familiar but alien at the same time. Their technology was integrated seamlessly into their bodies, making them living examples of the harmony between flesh and metal that Zara had just achieved. "We are the architects," their leader spoke, and I recognized the voice that had been speaking through the vault. We built this place as a testing ground, hoping that one day the younger races would prove ready to join us among the stars. "You have been here the whole time?" Commander Thex demanded. "We have been sleeping," the architect replied, "waiting for someone to prove that wisdom and courage could overcome fear and greed. Your species, Commander, tried to break into our sanctum with weapons and threats. The Shadowfang hunters sought to claim our technology for conquest, but Zara Quinn asked permission and offered respect." "The armor," I said, my scientific mind racing to understand. "It is not just protective gear, is it?" "The Aegis is a symbiotic entity," the lead architect explained. "Part technology, part living essence, part something else entirely. It bonds permanently with its chosen partner, creating a being capable of protecting entire civilizations from threats that transcend conventional understanding." As if summoned by our conversation, alarms began sounding throughout the vault. The architects turned as one toward displays that materialized in the air, showing space around the planet. The disabled Shadowfang ships were moving again, but they were not alone. A massive fleet had arrived, ships of a design I had never seen before, dark and angular and radiating malevolence that made my skin crawl. "Devourers," the lead architect said, and for the first time, I heard fear in that ancient voice. "They consume entire star systems, leaving nothing but void behind. We had hoped they would not find this place for another 1,000 years." "How many ships?" Zara asked, her voice now carrying authority that made everyone in the room instinctively defer to her. 47 capital vessels, each capable of cracking planets," the architect replied. "They detected the vault activation and came to claim whatever power source could generate such energy signatures. Through the displays, I could see the Shadowfang hunters trying to flee, their supposedly invincible ships running from the approaching fleet like frightened prey animals. One of the dark vessels fired a single beam that simply erased a hunter ship from existence, not destroying it, but making it cease to ever have been." "Well," Zara said, with that sharp smile I was beginning to associate with imminent violence, "I guess it is time for a field test." What happened next redefined my understanding of what was possible in this universe. Zara, now bonded with the Aegis of Echoes, rose into the air without any visible means of propulsion. The armor around her began to shift and change, growing additional components that looked like they were being assembled from pure mathematics. Weapons that should not have been able to exist started materializing along her arms and shoulders. "Aegis," she said, "show me what we can do." The response came not in words, but in a flood of information that somehow reached every mind in the chamber. I suddenly knew things about space combat that I had never learned, understood weapons principles that had not been invented by any known species, and glimpsed tactical possibilities that made conventional warfare look like children throwing rocks. Zara launched herself toward the vault exit, moving so fast that she seemed to simply teleport from place to place. The architects followed, their own forms shifting as they awakened technologies that had slept for millennia. We lesser beings scrambled to keep up, reaching the surface just in time to witness something that would be talked about in hushed whispers for centuries to come. 47 planet-killing ships faced off against one human female in ancient armor. It was not even close to being a fair fight. Zara moved through space like physics was merely a suggestion. The Devourer ships fired weapons that could unmake matter itself, but she danced between the beams as if she could see them coming before they were fired. When she struck back, her weapons did not just destroy ships, they rewrote reality around them, turning engines into flowers and hull plating into butterflies. "Impossible," Commander Thex whispered, watching through the vault sensors as Zara single-handedly dismantled a fleet that could have conquered half the galaxy. "Not impossible," the lead architect corrected. "Inevitable. This is what the younger races can become when they move beyond fear and embrace the harmony between mind, body, and technology." The battle, if it could even be called that, lasted less than 10 minutes. When it was over, the Devourer fleet was gone, not destroyed, but transformed into something beautiful and harmless. Zara returned to the surface, the armor flowing back into its more compact configuration, and looked at us with eyes that held depths I could not fathom. "The compact is sealed," she announced. "The Watchers have awakened, and the galaxy has a new guardian. The old age of conquest and fear ends today." In the weeks that followed, word of what happened at Arcturus 9 spread through every inhabited system. The Shadow Fang hunters, rather than seeking revenge, approached Zara with something approaching reverence. Pack leader Venatrix herself knelt before the human female who had casually dismissed their greatest weapons and offered her pack's service in protecting the innocent. The Galactic Council was in an uproar, of course. Humanity went from being a barely noticed species to being the most important power in known space overnight. But Zara Quinn seemed unconcerned with politics or power. She spent her time traveling from system to system, settling conflicts that had raged for centuries, with a combination of wisdom, technology, and the quiet threat of what she could do if diplomacy failed. As for me, I returned to my research with a completely new perspective. The universe was far stranger and more wonderful than I had ever imagined, and I now knew that the categories I had spent my life creating were meaningless. There were no prey species or predator species, only those who had learned to transcend their limitations and those who had not. The last time I saw Zara, she was mediating a territorial dispute between the hegemony of Bones and the Crystal Collective, two species that had been at war for 300 years. She sat between their representatives like she had been born to the role, the Aegis armor glinting softly in the station lighting, and spoke with the voice of someone who had seen the true scope of the universe. "The Builders left us more than just technology," she told me later, as we shared drinks in a cantina that catered to dozens of species. "They left us the knowledge that we are all part of something larger than ourselves. The armor is not a weapon, Vorthak. It is a reminder that we are capable of becoming more than we ever dreamed." I raised my glass to her, this human female who had changed everything simply by asking permission instead of demanding tribute. "To transcendence," I toasted. "To understanding," she replied, and in her storm-colored eyes I could see reflections of stars yet to be born. The galaxy would never be the same, and for the first time in my very long life, that prospect did not terrify me. It filled me with hope.